someone comes and they want to start hiring security, if they want to procure, because a lot of people right now with the current climate that we're facing wants to hire security, but they don't exactly know where to start. So a lot of people right now are kind of like going, get a big guy, get a firearm, and that's a bodyguard, which is obviously not the case. And I mean, who better to break this down to us than you?
I've learnt on the ground about this game, more so than out of the literature and books.
Yeah.
But because you're so used to that type of lifestyle and used to that trauma and that combat, that you're just totally desensitized.
Sure.
But I learned as I got married, then I had kids. Sure. So that softens you up a little bit. You're working behind the desk now. You're in the aircon office. You don't have to go and go out on the ground at 3 o'clock in the morning. Sure. We don't have the resources that the police, the law enforcement, and the military have. So we can call in an airstrike if we're in the military, or we can throw some mortars down range. Yeah. If it's just you and me on a task, we don't want to be getting in the shootout with 10x whatever guys who have come to assassinate our client.
No, genuinely.
Or you're running around the house with your
clearing the room.
Yeah. You're button hooking every corner and you're slicing the pie. You know what I mean? You're doing a high compress and you're going in and you're engaging. Man. But your wife's looking at you and said, don't worry, we're safe, my love. Okay, that costs nothing.
Yeah. Hey guys, thanks for joining us. Today I'm going to be sitting and having a discussion here with Ryan. Ryan, please, man, introduce yourself.
Well, first of all, thanks, Ali, for facilitating us on your podcast. We look forward to having a discussion about industry leaders and the close protection. My name's Ryan Brotherton. I'm an owner of a company called Ipeleng Risk Management Services. We provide both training in the close protection realms and the operational realms to national, international clientele. We've been around the block, we've been around town, we proactively been operating 18 to 19 years in the industry. So yeah, we'd like to think that we have something to offer the industry. But yeah, I mean, what can I say? I've enjoyed the journey. It's been a rather interesting journey. Love the game, passionate about the game, traveled through the game. I've learnt on the ground about this game, more so than out of the literature and books.
Awesome, man. And I think that's why it was something for me to have you, on recording, to have this discussion with you, was purely just because of your experiences, that you've got, your reputation that you've got within the industry. Definitely, in my opinion, a subject matter expert. And, from a competence and compliance point of view, I think you'll definitely be able to give us a little bit more direction, with that. But definitely also discussing, what it takes to transition, from the bush to the concrete jungle. I think that's obviously something that a lot of people tends to struggle with when they're coming, from military and they want to come over to the private. What's the different challenges that you face when you're stepping into corporate, when you're moving into corporate, and we'll touch on some of that a little bit later. But yeah, man, please definitely, Ryan, just give us some guidelines. If someone comes and they want to start hiring security, if they want to procure, because a lot of people right now with the current climate that we're facing wants to hire security, but they don't exactly know where to start. So a lot of people right now are kind of like going, get a big guy, get a firearm, and that's a bodyguard, which is obviously not the case. And I mean, who better to break this down to us than you? So what would you say? Where's the best place for someone to start? What sort of things should they be looking out for? What sort of questions should they be asking? Even if they're just procuring with a number of security companies, what sort of questions do you think they could be asking?
Yeah, so you've got two entities and role players in this relationship. You're going to have obviously the principal, which is known as your clientele.
Sure.
The terminology used in close protection is your principal.
Yeah.
And then you've got your operatives, which are your close protection operators. There's a lot of different terminologies guys use across the board. So I think for the clientele, it's imperative that they listen into the regulatory shows. They do their research on what type of individuals they're going to hire. The clients have got to hire individuals that suit their corporations, that suit their businesses. They've got to profile their operatives. You know, as far as entering the security industry, we're going to obviously touch on South Africa predominantly. As you know, the security industry here is extremely saturated.
Yeah.
Okay, so everywhere you turn around, 10, 15 years ago, different story.
Sure.
You had the major role players, but now you turn around, every second guy is a tactical operator, every second guy is a close protection operative. And that's because of the evolution of information, Ali.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, in the days we used to go to UNISA, sit down for 4 years and study and do our degrees and listen to a lecturer who had been around the block.
Sure.
Nowadays, you can draw on all of this through podcasts, social media, Instagram, and you can build your own portfolio with no one being none the wiser.
Yeah.
Come straight off the social media onto the ground. This guy thinks you're a fully fledged operative.
Yes.
Okay, so
and we see that a lot. We come across that a lot these days, definitely.
Until they get to a critical cross-field outcome, you know, where they've got a hard compromise. What are they going to do in that scenario? Do they have the experience? Do they have the calmness? Do they know how to relate to those incidences? So, you know, the clients are now being held to book nowadays as far as who they hire. But again, due to the infrastructure of our country, due to the SAP's mandate, they cannot fulfill their mandate. I mean, they are not hiring enough staff. Their resources are little. You know, they need more resources. Their funding, their training. So who fills that gap? You, me, the security experts. We're filling those gaps in the industry. And we're training. So we don't have those perishable skills. You know, so the reality is the civilians are investing in themselves from a training capacity. And they're going out there. Can you learn close protection in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 years?
No.
I mean, who am I to judge? You know what I'm saying? So the mandate from the training authority says we can train it over that period of time. But the reality is it's
completely different.
Yeah, it's a game that you've learned over the past 15 years.
100%.
20 years in my personal capacity.
And sorry, Ryan, and I think, you know, just to obviously to help the listener just to understand who you are, you know, I think I want to go way back to how you actually got into the industry and your journey. So if you can kind of break that down for us, you know, everything literally from the start. I mean, your dad is a legend, you know, so I'd like to actually go as far back as that. And if you can just start us literally from the beginning and then bring us to where you are right now.
Okay, so our origin is we're basically from Zimbabwe, formerly known as Rhodesia. So my father served in the forces there for 13 years. And during the transitional takeover period when ZANU-PF came into power and Robert Mugabe came into power, those ex-military guys were still serving at that point in time. They came to a crux in their career. Do we join the enemy that we've been fighting against for the last 2 decades, or do we cross the border into South Africa or go into our neighboring countries? And that's what a lot of these guys did. So my father, he steered over to South Africa in about 82, 83. We moved to the East Rand Springs in particular. And I grew up like any normal civilian. I went to school. It was a culture shock because I went to an Afrikaans school. And I had come from one of the colonial countries. So we didn't really understand the language. We had that barrier. So it was my first experience going to school in bare feet. you know, especially during winter.
Yeah.
And kudos to those Afrikaans boys; they're tough as nails, you know, because we weren't used to running around schools in bare feet.
Sure.
And I think at about the age of 5, my dad introduced me to the martial arts realm. So I started karate because that was the go-to sport back in the day. You either did karate or judo. They didn't have all that myriad of different martial arts back in there. So, you know, from the get-go, I was already disciplined and I was working on my trade craft, so to speak. So I started off with karate and I worked my way up to obviously second dan black belt, and I'd won a myriad of championships.
Wow.
In the karate realm. I'd gone to Hungary in 93. I won a world championship there. In 96, I went to Osaka, Japan at 16. And the funny thing is I got contracted by the Japanese at 16
Wow.
to go and train in their dojos. A dojo is a place where they go train.
Sure.
And obviously I didn't get parental consent from my mother, which is fine, but she wanted me to finish my schooling. But during my schooling career, I'd grown up with all these military stories and all these ex-mil guys talking about their personal experiences around the fire. So I'd already had that entrenched in me. It was almost like, it was almost like that singed into my soul.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then obviously at matric came, just a normal scholar. Listen, nothing special, but nothing, I didn't drop out, got my matric. And then I got to that crux in my career. What should I do next? Went and studied sports management. I flunked that. I bailed out. 4 months into it, I went back to my dad. I said, Dad, listen, I need to pay you back for this, but this is not for me. I can't sit and swat at the moment. I'm too active. So what do you recommend? I want to operate. I want to get into this game. And that stage, my dad got a contract awarded him in his private capacity to look after a major oil baron.
Wow.
A Dutch oil trader.
Wow.
Who was trading oil to South Africa. This guy had a compound in the West Rand, in the Muldersdrift area.
Nice.
We had Americans come over and do training for us. There was no certification. There was no certificates. There was no handshakes.
Sure.
So we learned the game through these guys who had been looking after their client.
Yeah.
And during those operations, I'd worked as a freelance contractor. I'd go and take the luggage, secure the luggage, drop it off at the hotel. Sure. So I never really had that interaction with the clientele because I wasn't at that level yet, wet behind the ears, young. Sure. But I was watching these senior operators do their thing. So I then came across an ex-Hereford guy, what they call a SAS, Special Forces guy, a British guy from Yorkshire. His name was Steve. And we got chatting while I was operating, doing the errands for these guys. He said to me, hey, man, what do you want to do with your life? And I was like, I don't know if I want to operate in South Africa. And he said, well, what about if you jump on a plane and go join the British Mill? So I was like, wow, that's a great idea.
Sure.
Let's give it a bash.
Yeah.
So obviously at that stage, you're 19, you're in and out of these decisions. I had a serious girlfriend at the stage. So there was always a drawback. But eventually, I think it was November or December, stand to be corrected, 1999 or 2000, I made that decisive decision. I bought a plane ticket.
Wow.
Got on a plane, and I flew to London.
Sure.
Got off at Paddington Station, which is a major train station in the UK. And then I went down to a place called Milton Keynes, about an hour and a bit outside of London. And I went straight to the recruitment office.
Wow.
At that stage, during my research period, I decided I wanted to be an airborne soldier, jump out of planes for a living.
Wow.
So I wanted to, I wanted to come in, infantry, front lines, get involved, into the thick of it.
Yeah.
And, I went to the recruitment office. I mean, I couldn't understand the recruitment office because the guy's accent was so staunch.
Yeah.
It was like, what?
Yeah.
What? Excuse me, sir. And quite a daunting experience, coming from a foreign country, getting on a plane, knowing nothing about the mill. I mean, you've read articles and stuff, but it's never really going to prepare you for the real thing.
Yeah.
And then I said to him, I want to join the parachute regiment. And he said, why? Why that unit? He was quite taken back because obviously there wasn't a general request that this guy had received in that recruitment office. I said, I think because they're the best. They're straight.
Yeah.
I said, I've got nothing back home going for me. And I always learned when you're going to go and do a recruitment application, no ifs, no buts, no whys, no doubts.
Sure.
Because these guys are going to invest big money into your training. Your basic training is 6 months, on the cusp of 7 months.
It's a lot of money.
So you can go, oh, I don't know, I'm sorry. So you have to be steadfast in your conviction, and you say, I want to join this, and I've got nothing going back home.
Sure.
Even though I had home, I had my dad, my mom, I had the infrastructure, no problems. So he said, no problem. And I had to go through an application process like everyone. Fortunately, I have a British passport.
Okay.
My dad's British, so I got it through descent.
Okay.
So it wasn't such a rigmarole like the South Africans.
Sure.
Remember, South Africans can join the British military because they belong under the Commonwealth.
Yes.
And so they signed me up, and then they said your pre-selection is in Pirbright. It's a 3-day selection. You have to make the cut as far as the basic fitness fitness tests and aptitude tests are concerned. So I went down there, trained a bit while I was in Milton Keynes. I stayed with my cousin back then, and I was just doing dead-end jobs. He had a nice little pad there, so I was very fortunate.
Okay.
And bless his soul.
Sure.
And went down. I went to Pirbright, and I made the cut for the parachute regiment.
Nice.
I then came back to South Africa for about 4 or 5 months before my intake, and I trained here.
Awesome.
So doing ruck runs, endurance runs. Not as much push-ups and pull-ups as people think in the parachute regiment.
Sure.
Very endurance-based. Okay, so it is quite endurance-based.
Sure.
Then I joined the parachute regiment. I mean, I stand to be corrected around 2002, 2003. So quite an application process going through that. Back and forth, on the timeline. And then I think it was August 2003 was my intake. Training was up north in North Yorkshire. It's a base camp called Catterick.
Okay.
We went and did our basic there. And then at the end of your basics, you do a selection process. It's called P Company.
Okay.
Pegasus Company.
Sure.
So once you're done P Company, you have to pass that selection. You haven't got to battalion yet. You still need to go do your jumps course.
Yeah.
That's done at Bryce Norton. And that's a 4-week ordeal. You learn how to jump out of planes.
Sure.
Going from 1,000 feet to 800 to 600.
What was your first time like?
No, you don't even know. I mean, because my surname is Brotherton as well. So you must know I'm like second at the door. So while you're standing up at the door and your hands here, you've got your static line, and there's a PGI, he's the instructor that controls what they call a stick. And these guys deploy you out of this Hercules, a C-130.
Wow.
And you don't even know what speed that's going on. You're just in this daze. I mean, and you're just like, I don't know, whatever I got myself into, And the guys, everyone's looking at each other and they're apprehensive, and everyone's trying to keep this brave face on.
Sure.
The meantime, these guys are like, we're all at the same age, and we're like, this is for real.
Yeah.
We're jumping out of a plane now.
Wow.
This is what we signed up for.
And how old were you at the time, right?
I think I must have been 20.
Gee,
20 on the cusp of 21.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact timelines, but in and around that.
Sure.
And quite funny enough, I was actually old for the unit.
Okay.
Because in the UK, a lot of guys leave school at 16 and they drop out.
Wow.
A lot of the guys have got bad backgrounds. They were grown up on these hardcore estates in the UK. So they get given a choice by the government. Wow. Either you go sit behind bars, or you have the option of serving. So a lot of the guys were hardcore guys. They were, they come from hard backgrounds, And there's me, this normal civilian from Joburg that's gone to a semi-decent school, and these guys are all like, some of them have boosted cars at this age, and I'm this clean cut, South African colonial, even though I've got a British passport. But and it was an extreme culture shock for us. When we got to the basics.
Sure.
And then we did our jumps course. And then from there, within 2 months, I got deployed to Northern Ireland.
Wow.
Went to Northern Ireland, did some peacekeeping operations, kicked off a little bit there, nothing major.
Sure.
Got to understand what the troubles were like in North Ireland, Belfast. And then every year, my unit was very fortunate to get deployed on operations.
Wow.
Some units, they don't.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
wait for 15, 16 years.
Sure.
Guys are like, they're keen to get out on the ground to test their skill sets. Then in 2005, I went to Iraq, Basra, spent 6-7 months there. And then 2006, we went to Afghanistan, and that's when it kicked off. Afghanistan was my teaching.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my education about
Okay.
the real shit.
Sure.
Excuse my language.
Sure.
but yeah.
Sure.
And spent a good 7 months in Afghanistan, jousting against the Taliban. Formidable enemy. Just an amazing, journey.
Yeah.
And spent it with some good men, some good quality men, and we lost a few bros on that tour. It comes with the territory. And then the biggest battle is leaving the military.
Yeah.
In the military, you only have to do 2 things: keep fit and don't die.
Sure.
You become so institutionalized in the military, it's okay.
Yeah.
You wake up every morning, everything is routine.
Yeah.
You keep fit, you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
You're running, you're tabbing, you're doing all these fitness exercises, you're going on exercise, training the whole time, and it's coming back into civilian street.
DreamStream, a place to create yourself. Record video, music, and podcasts in our full-service studio. Record video, music, and podcasts in our full-service studio. DreamStream, a place to create yourself.
Sit in front of a CEO, a manager, procurement guy, and you throw your CV across the table.
Sure. Let's unpack that a little bit more, Ryan. The challenges of coming from that environment, now stepping, like I said, into this concrete jungle.
Yeah.
And now you're going to be sitting in front of a CEO where you used to, in the military, it's quite strategic. It's quite specific, you know who your ranking officers are, you know who the instruction comes from. So you're quite clear on what the task is going to be. And again, we don't go off the set of rules that's been laid before you.
Correct.
But obviously in private, it's quite different. In private, now you may sit in front of the CEO and that's where it all begins. But once you get once you get through the door and now you in this organization, there's a bunch of people that you now have to be open to taking instruction, and it's no longer just taking instruction from that specific person.
Yeah.
Why do we struggle so much to pivot, over into private?
Yeah, very good question, because I think it comes from maybe even before that with a lot of guys and the traumas and experiences through their life.
Sure.
Also, maybe not a lot of the guys were exposed to a corporate environment. You have to learn as you go along. Sure. I did. One thing we discussed earlier on, it was a sense of urgency in the military.
Sure.
If you're my commanding officer or my corporal or my sergeant and you say to me, hey, Private Ryan, I want you to go and get that cup of coffee, I don't go, but if why?
Sure.
Okay, I move.
Sure.
So sitting with these corporates, they sit on it, and there's a lot of discussions. There's a lot of strategizing. Whereas the military, it's an objective.
Yeah.
Okay, that's our objective. Mission success, go home for tea and biscuits.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
In the corporate sector, you send an invoice, you send a report.
Yeah.
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 And you're like, okay, sign it off, bud. Sign it off, sir.
Yeah.
This needs to be implemented ASAP.
Yes.
This risk mitigation report or security strategies need to be upgraded.
Yes.
And it doesn't get done. It sits in the in-tray, the in-tray. Oh, no, finances.
Sure.
Whatever red tape we have to go through.
Sure.
So we're not used to that at our level when we're operating. You say to me, I want 1, 2, 3. I know it's 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
So you have to remain flexible.
Yeah.
But I think what happened with a lot of the military guys, you must understand they belong to a brotherhood, especially in these top-tier units.
Yeah.
So could you imagine now being knocked off that perch?
It's almost like the level of respect you had within the unit that you served in, and now you're coming over, you're stepping into this organization. The respect is different, like over here we may respect the sales and media, or marketing person or whatever.
Correct.
Because of the industry that they're in. You coming on as security to come and do security in an organization, but it's not a security organization. So unfortunately you just get seen as that dude that's in the way, the unnecessary person on the budget, and that's obviously that's the thing. But take us back to how you came into, obviously when you came back, you came into the private sector, and how that unfolded for you when you came back.
So, I mean, that was a shock to me because I had to go and sit and do a competency. I had to go and sit and do all these security courses. As you know, we're regulated by the SAPs. We're regulated by all these training authorities and regulatory authorities. So to sit in front of an instructor that was 21 years old and telling me about his experiences, that was a hard pill to swallow.
Sure.
But I had no choice
Sure.
because I had to get the paperwork.
Sure.
So that was my first hurdle that I had to get over,
Okay.
And then again, getting into the corporate sector. I was very fortunate to piggyback off the back end of my father.
Okay.
So I'd already had that infrastructure in place. So I started off as a supervisor, supervising operations, from the guarding to the close protection to surveillance, whatever assignments we had been tasked to do. And then I made my way up in the ranks, which was great because it wasn't just given to me.
Sure.
So I started off, and then I made manager, then I made director, and I've eventually got to sit with the head chef around the table and discuss business strategies and security strategies. But it's always going to be tough because you'll always have that entrenched in you as an operative, as a military man.
Sure.
We're used to getting things done, and that was the biggest thing for me.
Okay.
Also, facilitating feelings and concerns, because
in the military there isn't any.
you don't have time.
Yeah.
There's no grieving process. There's no trauma counselors for these guys. There's no reinstituting us back into normal society. So we compartmentalize things, and I'm speaking on behalf of most of the guys. Some of the guys got out alcoholics, full-blown alcoholics.
Sure.
It's a culture in the military.
Sure.
Okay, how do you decompress when you've been shooting 10,000 rounds in 3 months?
Sure.
Or 100,000?
Yeah.
You've got A10s over your head. You've got bangs, explosions, guys shouting.
Yeah.
How do you decompress?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go into a pub, this is what these guys do, and they drink
Yeah.
to forget. Some of us carry on with it, some of us don't.
Sure.
So it's a very difficult transition. I mean, we can speak about it for hours on end.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate to always have that objective. I knew when I left the military that I was always going to go into security because it was a natural progression.
Sure.
And if you look at the majority of the PMC contractors around the world, they're all ex-military or SAPS guys.
Sure.
So they have that background,
Yeah.
that background factor.
Yeah.
And I just started to now understand what civilian capabilities are, what their feelings and their considerations are. Because I'd like to say that I'm not desensitized, but I am.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Bit of a conundrum there.
Sure.
So we're desensitized to feelings. Hey, Ellie, we had a braai. Ellie says, my brother got shot in the head and got killed. Hey, Ellie, don't burn my meat, but... sorry about your brother. You know what I mean? The sisters, everyone's crying.
Yeah.
But because you're so used to that type of lifestyle and used to that trauma and that combat, that you're just totally desensitized.
Sure.
But I learned as I got married, then I had kids.
Sure.
So that softens you up a little bit.
Yeah.
You're working behind the desk now. You're in the aircon office. You don't have to go and go out on the ground at 3 o'clock in the morning to sort out some problems, and you work your way up, through experiences. So, I think that's the best thing for you in life is your experiences. We'll always talk about experiences.
Sure.
So if you can collaborate your experiences with your training and your skill sets, you're formidable
Yeah.
agent,
Yeah.
close protection operative,
Yeah.
CEO, director.
Sure.
And I think the industry needs a lot of that. I think the industry,
Definitely.
we've got owners of security companies that have business backgrounds. Kudos to them.
Yeah.
But I think the guys are looking for guys,
Yes.
hey
Operators.
man, has he been on the ground?
Yeah, operators.
Has he had a cuck night like
Yeah.
I've had,
Operators.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has he done 48 hours where he didn't
Yeah.
have chow and the
Yes.
clients running him up and down?
Yes.
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 And then the likes of guys who have done that, like yourself and myself, now become the head shed of our companies and we run our own entities.
Sure.
I think that draws on a little bit more respect,
Definitely.
And if you look at the major operatives and the major role players, you see a lot of them, they do have that background.
Yes,
and
definitely.
we're always in competition.
Yeah.
I'm X this, I'm X
Yes,
that,
yes.
whatever. I mean, they've gone through the hard yards, and that's what counts.
Sure.
They've paid the sacrifices. They've sweat. They've gone down range. They've gone on exercises. They've had those hard yards. So kudos to those guys.
Sure.
But competition is good.
Competition is great. Competition is amazing. I think when I was sitting down and I was thinking about sitting down and having this discussion with you, I was taken back to our relationship from the beginning. I just called you up and I was like, listen, I know a lot about you and whatever, but I'm kind of on this journey. This is what I've been doing for the last couple of years. I've done some close protection courses and whatever the case may be. I came and I did your course as well, because I've done a few of these courses now, and I've done your course. And I think, more than anything, the relationship that I've got with you, after the fact. I mean, on course, you tough as nails. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I think afterwards, the support that you give, I mean, even now, there'll be certain things that I may be trying to sort out or whatever, and I'm unclear about certain things. I've got access to you, and I just call you up, and I'm like, hey, Ryan, listen, I'm sitting here with this, and please help me with 1, 2, or 3. And you're always that guy. I mean, I don't know about the other guys and whether all of them has that experience with you, but certainly for me, I've always had access to you, and you've always been very helpful, in terms of just assisting me with whatever the case may be. So I do think that, you're a great guy. And your experiences, man, I think I always leech off your experiences. And I think that's why I linger onto you as much as what I do, is just because your passion and your love for what you do. There's a lot of guys that comes in and, that they know they can make a lot of money. So that's why they're here.
100%.
But I think for you, it's like that passion. It's like it's deeply rooted in you. And
Yeah,
we've had some discussions before.
Well, this is my therapy.
Exactly.
Look, I'm doing my therapy.
Exactly.
Everyone goes to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. My therapy is sitting with Ali and the guys and discussing security.
Sure.
We talk about, hey, yes, I went on this op and I got a blowout and I had to cross-deck the client from car A to car B. And, we were scanning and this guy came up to me, how should I handle this situation? And I think that's why I'd like to think my business has done okay. It's because I think my business is people.
Investing in people.
Talking and communicating with the low-end guys, because I've been an operator. I've been at the bottom. I didn't get rank when I was in the military for whatever reasons. Okay, whether I was not as motivated as the other guys, or I was just happy just being a frontline scout and getting stuff down range and getting stuff done. But I think people is what made my business. I know for a fact that if I lost it all, I could make it all again, just through my personal relationships with people. I know I can phone the guys and say, hey, man, I'm down on my luck. Pull me into a 2-day gig. I need to get back on my feet. No problem, Ryan. Cool. I have that network. And that's taken, consequently, 22 years? I'm going to have my critics. I'm cool with that. I'm going to have feedback. I'm cool with that. That's par for the course.
Of course.
It's okay. It's okay.
But you can't make everyone happy, eh?
Yeah, not everyone. Not everyone's going to like lemon meringue, or cheesecake.
Of course not.
I'm okay with that. I'm good with myself. I'm compliant. I'm compliant in what I do. I can sleep at night. I don't have to look over my 6 every 2 minutes.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a struggle, but
it's been real.
What is it?
Yeah.
What is it?
Ryan, just to give I think some of the guys that will be watching this and they're going, listen, man, how do I get into the industry? And I think personally for me, I came and I operated for years without, being accredited or whatever,
No problem.
which is obviously not the right way of doing things, but it is what it is. I started out as a bouncer, and I always knew that I wanted to be, back in the day, we used to refer to it as bodyguards and not as CPOs. So I always wanted to be a bodyguard. I mean, you could have asked me from a very early age. I knew what I wanted to be one day. I just didn't have the money to go for the training and all of that, But I started out as a bouncer, and I started bouncing for the first few years, and since then, I was always very fortunate to meet the correct people at every stage in my life that helped me pivot over to the next phase of my life. And it was great because I had met some older operatives that just took to me and that just guided me and that just taught me things, And before I did the formal trainings, before I did any of the close protection courses, I had older guys that's been on the ground for years and stuff that genuinely just taught me, took me into the vehicle, showed me how to do the convoy driving, took me to the range, showed me how to do planning, recon work, etc., linear mapping, all of those things. So by the time I started doing courses, I pretty much knew what was going on because I had been with the guys I've been doing this for years before I actually went on course. But for some of the guys that's looking, it could be a guy that's low in security. It could be a guy that's trying to transition from one industry into the close protection space, because let's face it, the reality is with the current climate that we're facing, there's a huge demand for it, and people know they can make a lot of money doing this. I mean, one of my guests that I'll bring on later on would probably be a female that was a CPO.
Nice.
And she reaches out to me on Facebook, and then she goes, listen, I'm SAPS. I've been with SAPS, I think it was over 10, 12 years, something like that, but she's thinking heavily about coming over to the private sector. What does she do? Listen, I'd take my payout and I'd go get my training and accreditation done, and I'd come this side.
Yeah.
First job earning 45, nearly 50 grand, So people can definitely leave other industries, come over here and make a lot of money. It doesn't have to be from a law enforcement background. It can be from IT, it can be from the tech space, whatever the case may be. But what would you say to people that's thinking, to the ordinary guy that's thinking about coming over? What advice would you give him?
Good question. I mean, listen, first of all, you have to have the right lifestyle change.
Sure.
And mindset. You've got to understand this is not a 9 to 5.
Sure.
Okay. The accountability that comes with this, whether it's on paper or not, whether there's legal recourse or not, the accountability from within your spiritual realm that comes with this, you are being tasked to take care of another person.
Sure.
Comes natural to some people, but not to everyone.
Yeah.
So sacrifice is going to be you got to sacrifice.
Yeah.
If you're a Sunday and a Saturday guy who likes to sit on the couch and watch ruggers and...
I haven't had a Sunday in the last 14 years.
There we go. Exactly.
Yeah. Other than lockdown.
100%.
And when I was sick.
There we go. What a pleasure, On my deathbed, but I've got time off, Oh, no, this is cool. I got the day off, but I've got COVID, The reality, Elia, is a sacrifice.
Sure.
Okay. If you look at our lineage as operatives, most of us have gone through 1, 2, 3 marriages, myself included.
That's a real thing, yeah.
Okay, so it's sacrifice.
Yeah, that's a real thing.
Because while everyone's doing your daughter's first birthday, guess where you are?
Operating bad.
So I can appeal to the audience and say to them, sacrifice.
Sure.
Okay, cream will always rise to the top. So if you're good at what you do, it's okay.
Yeah.
The cream's going to rise to the top.
Yeah.
But the reality is you have to sacrifice. You can go and study all you like. It's coming back to the discipline and dedication factor. In 2010, I was on the cusp of bankruptcy, but I sacrificed.
Yeah.
I was training guys one-on-one in a 2x2 office with one little whiteboard and sacrificing Monday to Sunday, taking on any job to build up my reputation in the industry. That's the background.
And
they must sacrifice. That's the first thing.
And that's something that I find a lot of guys are not willing to do anymore. A lot of guys I'm very fortunate in the sense that a lot of guys come to me for guidance and advice and almost like mentorship, and I
Excellent.
genuinely feel like I'm too young to mentor people. So everyone that comes to
Absolutely
me for
not. I
mentor,
don't agree with that.
no, everyone that comes to me for mentorship, I kind of like always try to redirect them. But I've been very fortunate and blessed, to journey with a lot of people, on this journey of getting into the industry and then, growing themselves within the industry. But the one thing that irritates me the most, the most frustrating thing, is the fact that the guys are not willing to put in that hard yards. The guys, personally, I went on tasks very early on and I worked for free just because I knew these guys. I had access to these guys, and these guys had a detail, man. These guys, like, listen, to me, these guys are operators, these guys, they do the 3-4 car convoying, they're in their suits, they this, they that. But I worked for free on a good couple of tasks coming up, my first few years.
DreamStream, a place to create yourself. Record video, music, and podcasts in our full-service studio. Record video, music, and podcasts in our full-service studio. DreamStream, a place to create yourself.
Just because I wanted the exposure, just because I wanted to be exposed to what it looks like on the inside, this dream that I have, this desire that I have to do this work one day and to be the best at it, and I know there's always going to be someone better than you, but in my mind, I just wanted to be the best that I could be. I just wanted to be able to serve people, because that's what this job ultimately is. You a servant, you laying down your life for someone else. What greater gift is there than to lay down your life for another human being? So that comes in multiple forms when we're doing this job. There may come a day where you have to take a bullet, God forbid, but the reality is, like you're saying, that sacrifice, you're sacrificing your personal life, you're sacrificing your personal time, your family time, you're never there for Christmas, you're never there for people's birthdays, you may not even be able to make it to people very close to you's funerals. I unfortunately did pretty much every one of those things.
Correct.
People very close to me whose funerals I couldn't attend because I was on a detail, because I was working, So I think that's the reality of it. But a lot of guys are not willing to make those sacrifices. A lot of guys are not willing to really just come in, start at the bottom, be that water boy. If that's what it is. Everyone wants to come and be with the client. Everyone wants to be next to the client. Everyone wants to be seen, What did you say to that person?
Well, I'd say look at the availability and accessibility of information again. So when you go onto all these Instagram pages, what are you looking at? You're looking at the end product of someone's 30-year career.
Sure.
Where now he has the big houses, he has the big cars. You're not looking at the grunt level.
Yeah.
So your automatic psychology is, I can do that now, because that's what we want. We want to run before we learn to crawl.
Sure.
So patience is a big part of this. You understand? Patience, build, slowly.
Slow and steady wins the race. Eh?
Yeah. I mean, there are a few guys that have hit the jackpot.
Of course. Yeah.
That's going to always happen.
Yeah.
But you've got to start and work your way up. You have to, and you got to start at grassroots levels. You've got to do the hard yards. That's the reality.
Yeah.
That's how you earn the respect of your peers who are in those senior positions.
Sure.
The owners who have done what you're about to do. We don't do that in society anymore because we have so much choices.
Sure. Ryan, so for the person that's obviously looking to procure such a service, what would you say to them? How would you advise them where to start looking, what to look for?
Hire us to do that for you from a consultancy perspective. It saves you the HR nightmare and it saves you all of that, because if it's not your forte, don't try to dissect it.
Yes.
Let us do it.
Yes.
Remember, when you are working for your client, you are representing your client.
100%.
You're a direct representation of your client. If you dress scruffy, you act scruffy, you tarnished with a gangster look or whatever it is, whatever the profile, you get associated
Of
like
course,
that.
yes.
And you're responsible for the reputational risk,
Yes.
the lives, the
Yes.
mitigation, the family, all of these processes.
Yes.
So you need to be up to speed and you need to understand
Up to
that.
standard also.
Correct. So if you are at a lower capacity or level, then stick in your lane until you upgrade your tier.
Yeah. So something, I mean, that I'm big on with guys, especially when I'm trying to help them, grow themselves within the industry, is read books. A lot of guys look at me when they're like, oh, what's the next thing that you think I should be focusing on? I'm like, read books. So a lot of guys wants to hear, oh, go do this driving course, go to that shooting class, whatever. I'm like, read a book.
100%.
And a lot of guys look at me and they stun. They're like, what book? I'm like, I don't know. Go to a bookstore and buy a John C. Maxwell book. Go buy a Robert Kiyosaki book. But read. And they look at me and they're like, that's got nothing. I'm like, that has everything to do with it. Because when you are in the vehicle with some CEO, with an industry leader, with a high net worth individual, with an exco leader, listen, that man doesn't care about how many rounds per second. He doesn't care about your 180, reverse that you. No one cares about. They don't care about your hard skills.
Correct.
What that man cares about is, can he have a decent conversation with you? Are you able to engage in a conversation at his level? Or is it best you just shut up, you sit there and you
100%.
just drive? A lot of these times, you're there, and we know the principle of speak when spoken to. But what happens the day that you are spoken to? Can you speak?
Yeah.
And I think that's what separates the good guys, the guys that the client wants next to them, versus the guys that wants to be next to the client. Because the guys that wants to be next to the client is the guy that really is here to be seen, is here to, for the show. Where I found that the guys that can articulate better, the guys that can actually use their brains a little, the guys that can actually be a little more flexible, are the guys that can genuinely be next to the client. He's the guy that, like you said, what's your background, but how are you going to clean up?
Correct.
To portray the client's image, If he has to send you to speak on his behalf somewhere, and that may just look like go somewhere and pick up a document for me. Again, it's his reputation. So when you walk in there, do you have the correct manners? Do you have the correct approach? Do you know how to say please and thank you? Basic things like that. So I think a lot of guys are so focused on the hard skills, and I mean, you a legend, you're phenomenal when it comes to, your shooting and all of that, and you're great. And that is good. It's necessary. We all must possess that skill set, because if the need arises, we should be able to deploy that skill set. And that's a great thing,
Yeah.
But let's face it, how often do we use that in a week? Not very often.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? But speaking, that is something that we use daily, pretty much hourly. So why is it that we don't focus on that? Why is it that we don't...
Listen, I think it's just the stigma attached with close protection. We have this whole firearm community and this whole firearm stigma. And if we go back to the literature, we're looking after these high net valued individuals. We're not there to shoot our weapon systems. We must mitigate the risk
100%.
prior to that happening.
100%.
We don't have the resources that the police, the law enforcement, and the military have. So we can call in an airstrike if we're in the military.
Yeah.
Or we can throw some mortars down range.
Yeah.
If it's just you and me on a task, we don't want to be getting in the shootout with 10x whatever guys who have come to assassinate our client. Going back on the soft skills, it's an imperative thing to have, because if you can't string two sentences together, client's going to check that. He's going to notice that straight away. And he's going to articulate that this guy should maybe not be within the client's realm.
Yes.
And it's
so we mean an escort vehicle.
Correct. It's imperative to go back to your planning and say, okay, let's look at my client's profile and match my operators according to my client's profile.
So that's actually something the more I get to sit with people, from a consulting space, and a lot of people's asking me, okay, how do I do this? How do I go about procuring for such a service? How do I go about selecting the correct people? Because there's competence, there's compliance, so all of this is important. And the first thing I go with is, you need to find someone that can honestly fit into your environment.
Correct.
Someone that can fit into, your life. When you go into a braais, this person gonna stick out like a sore thumb. Can we don't always want to put a heavily presence, security person, and everyone thinks you must be this big guy, carry firearms, and
Sure.
that's not always the case. Sometimes it's the smallest guy that's the best suited for a specific task. Again, he just looks like he's there, as part of the family, as part of the entourage. No one needs to know there's overt security, there's covert security, and a lot of times you'll do better if you're just coming in, you're under the radar, unless the client obviously wants that heavy presence, etc. Then we have to give the client what they want, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But we take a look at now all of these incidences that's been happening over the last while. People don't respect security the way they used to. People don't respect, and I'm going to use the terms bodyguards, the way they used to. CPOs are no longer given that respect, not from the clients, not from the criminals, and especially not from each other. Like, I think we've reached a place where I nearly want to say to the guys that, listen, we are the one industry that judges each other harshly. We judge the way we walk, we judge it, and it's not a bad thing. It holds you accountable. It holds you accountable, But more than anything, the person that the criminal, they just don't respect security anymore. That's why they come. They'll now kidnap someone in front of a detail. We just saw that a couple of weeks ago.
100%.
They'll come. They'll hit both the security and the client, where that used to be a deterrent. Tell me, Ryan. What's your thoughts
It's
on
hard.
this?
It's hard for me to comment on that because we don't know the background to the actual tasks. First of all, so again, we only see the end product of these assassinations.
Sure.
So it can be two sides of the coin. It can be either the client or the operatives. And that's why close protection is a fine balancing act. You have to compromise the client's lifestyle.
Sure.
So the literature says 1 arm's distance from the client at all times. But are you going to be 1 arm's distance when he's in the hot tub with his missus? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a very difficult process. A very difficult process and balancing act. So we've got some entities on the other side, don't carry bags, don't do these things because we need our hands free. So if we engage.
Yeah.
And then guys are coming in from the service perspective where you're saying, well, if you don't carry the bags, you don't get the gigs, guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So as far as the clients respecting us, I think it's both ways as well. Guys eating in the client's car.
Yeah. Definitely.
Smoking in a client's car, taking the car for a joyride on Friday night, then posting on Instagram. Do you understand? So I think it's a two-way street. Evidently, a lot of this boils down to financial constraints.
Sure.
When you first meet with a clientele, he wants tier 1 operators.
But
He wants B-level 6 AMGs.
Yeah.
And then he wants this. And then he wants Overwatch. He wants counter surveillance and counter snipering techniques. And he wants everything. He wants you to do ECM equipment, which is your electronic countermeasures. He wants all these things. You hit him a quote. He goes, nah, just want one guy. One guy. Don't you have a guy? Don't you have a driver? So it's imperative that both sides educate.
I've been having this discussion a lot lately, and I've been saying that I think purchasing security is like purchasing anything else.
Correct.
There's usually 3 levels. There's the Rolls-Royce, there's the Mercedes-Benz, and then there's your, let's call it maybe Toyota or something
100%,
level, The reality is everyone wants a service at the Rolls-Royce level. But for some weird reason, they want to pay the Toyota.
That's cool. Go find someone else then. That's cool. Because let me tell you about when you hire cheap service and get non-compliant and non-strategic and trained individuals. Let me tell you what's going to happen. It's going to be counterintuitive. It's going to be counterproductive. I can tell you now. Because that guy's going to be late for your meeting. Your 5 million rand meeting that you're just about to secure. You're late. Under the influence of alcohol. Doesn't arrive on duty. I mean, it's a myriad of things. We can discuss this. You know what happens in the industry. Arrives there with an airsoft pistol. Goes on duty, gets clipped. We've seen that.
We have.
Okay. So the clients need to educate themselves. The operators, because the industry is so saturated, the operators are in survival mode, Ali.
Sure.
South Africa's in survival mode.
Sure.
So if you're not going to do the job for a couple of $100,
Yeah.
the guy down the road will do.
Of course.
That we can never stop. That's
Yeah.
across all industries.
Yeah.
We can never stop that.
But I like to think, if you think the bill for good security is too high, wait until they give you the bill for cheap security.
100%.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that's something that
And then they steal your 20 million rands worth of
100%.
assets on top of your
100%.
security bill
100%.
with no liability clauses.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I mean, yeah. So they come in, they wipe your information, they steal all that intel,
Sure.
they take all your assets from under your feet. Worst case scenario, someone gets murdered or killed. Can't replace that.
Yeah.
So I always throw the question back in the client's court. How much is your wife worth?
Yeah. Sure.
How much is your kid worth?
Sure.
And then you see the face or the jaw drops.
Yeah.
So a couple of $100 a day, or in Rand's terminology, a couple grand a day.
Yeah.
In my honest opinion, it's actually very cheap.
Of course, because how much can I pay you to take a bullet for me?
Yeah.
How much can I pay you?
You
know
got
what
to
I'm
ask
saying?
yourself the question,
Yeah.
that guy is going to basically be here before my wife,
Yeah.
after my wife.
Yeah.
He's going to be with me 24/7
Yeah.
at my peril.
Yeah.
When I contact someone, he's going to be my, not point of contact,
He's
my
the-
single point of contact,
He's
what we
the
call a
contact.
Spock.
Yes.
That is my Spock. That's
Yes.
my go-to guy.
Yes.
Now I want to pay him peanuts. Then you're going to get that service. Listen, let's be honest. And again, everything is budget.
Sure.
It's all budget orientated.
Sure.
You know, we've got these big corporations. They have to cut budgets. And
first thing.
security is like insurance. It's
First
a
thing.
grudge purchase.
100%.
I don't want
100%.
it, but I have to have it
Yeah.
for insurance
Yeah.
reasons.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the companies have taken action, and there's a duty of care clause now
Sure.
where they're training their expats,
Sure.
they're training their clients, they're training. I would recommend the client does a 3-day course, an orientation course, just so they can understand if they're new to the industry.
Yes.
You know, but you definitely need some formal training. At least know where to stand, at least know how to position yourself, at least you know what to look out for. I mean, I can shout out all the terminologies,
course.
correct key combat indicators and trigger positions and all these fancy terminologies we use. But the basics have to be mastered.
Ryan, what do you think about operators training with their clients?
I think it's good. You need to rehearse, because if shit hits the fan,
Yeah.
and you tell your client to push left, they understand why he's saying push
Sure.
left. Get down, sir, cover your vitals, whatever it is.
Sure.
So, but where are we afforded that time frame to train with our clients?
Yeah.
And the clients will be like, shoom.
That's why
Now,
I
if
pay
we get
you.
allocated a female client, that's going to be quite tricky, showing her this is what happens. But what you can do is you can take them into a quite secluded area and say, sir, ma'am, if something happens in the vehicle, this is what I want you to do.
Sure.
If something happens when we're in a venue, I want you to carry this out. If we're at the residence, lock yourself in, stay put, you know, and you can run through your own SOPs
yes,
and your
yes.
own rehearsals.
Yes.
Is the client going to do that when you're doing a 5-day task and they're coming from Switzerland to Cape Town?
No.
Preferably not.
Yeah.
But then we got to weigh up the threat levels.
Yeah. Yeah.
So are the threat levels
At that level.
conducive to you going above and beyond and going through those rehearsals? So again, you have to be flexible as an operative.
Sure.
I mean, you know, just people have their different methodologies, Ali. I mean, in each one is entitled.
Sure.
Your eyes are your greatest asset.
Of course they are.
You can be the greatest on the range. You can be the fittest, hungriest, strongest, best driver. But if your eyes are closed,
And surprisingly, a lot of guys look at me skew when I say to them, the best skill you can have is to be observant.
100%.
Because if you can't see the threat coming, you can't do anything about it. So I'm grateful that you've got the sub, whatever draw.
Yeah.
But if you don't see the threat, good luck deploying that skill.
If you're always on Instagram
If you're on
posting
your phone,
pictures of yourself,
But this is what I'm trying to get back to. Guys are on details, they're on task, they're supposed to stand guard, what, keep security, whatever. And then they're on their phones.
Yes, that's bad.
I literally want to catch a crap right there. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
when I see it, because I'm like, you're not scanning, so you don't see what's coming, you know. And if you're not scanning, you're not seeing that's technically what you paid there to do.
We try to do that on our training evolutions, where we say to the guys, your biggest distractions. Once again, you got to go back to that discipline factor, Ali.
Sure.
What are those distractions you got as an operator?
Sure.
Getting home in time for dinner.
Yeah.
Food.
Yeah.
Water.
Yeah.
Social media.
Yeah.
Friends.
Yeah.
Going to the pubs.
Yeah.
These are all these distractions that you offered. Cut those distractions out.
Yeah.
And you have a main focal point, and your main focal point and your objective is to create a reputation for yourself as a successful operator.
Yes.
World's your oyster.
100%.
That's the bottom line.
100%.
I cannot teach you that.
Yeah.
We cannot teach you that.
No course can teach you that.
No course can do it. You got to get up off your ass, get in the gym, get on the range, practice your medical, your driving.
Yes.
And you can do that under your own roof.
Sure.
Like you said,
Yeah.
grab a book, grab a fake towel,
100%.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
cut a piece of meat,
Yeah.
pour some ooze out of there and wound pack it.
100%.
That's not going to cost you anything.
100%.
You can dry drill all day
100%, yeah.
in front of your mirror
Yeah.
while your wife's staring at you going, what's wrong with
What
you?
a nut.
Don't worry, my love. I got us covered.
No, genuinely.
Or you running around the house with your...
Clearing the room.
Yeah. You button hooking every corner and you slicing the pie. You know what I mean? You're doing a high compress and you're going in and you're engaging.
Yeah,
man. But your wife's looking at you and said, don't worry, we saved my love. Okay. That costs nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Costs nothing.
Yeah. No, you're right. 100%.
Train in a 3x3 meter.
Of course.
Practice your striking, your takedowns, your krav, whatever you prefer, your systema methods, whatever.
Sure.
Hand-to-hand combat, you can do that.
100%.
That's the beauty about the game.
Yes. Yes. I love that, Ryan.
Yeah,
I love that.
Get your girlfriend, tell her, okay, we're going to the mall today. You are the client. I'm going to look after you for the rest of the day.
My man.
And I promise you, she'll love you better at night. When you get back home, she's going to cook you the best dinner. If not, you guys are going to have a nice romantic dinner because you've looked after her all day.
And again,
you can rehearse that and practice that
100%.
as an operator.
Yes, 100%.
So you can be creative.
100%.
You don't need to go and spend 5 million or hundreds of thousands of rands. You can practice that. Obviously, when we go live and we get down and dirty and you got to shoot targets, we know it comes at a cost factor.
Of course, yes, of course.
And getting the accreditations
Again, I find a lot of guys, the more I chat to guys, it comes down to, I always like to ask these questions like, okay, cool, like what sort of training do you guys do? When last have you guys trained? Oh no, the company doesn't send us. And I'm going, you know what? The reality is when I came into the game, the guys that taught me the game was also great teachers in the sense of it's your responsibility to get better. You can't tell me that the client doesn't pay for you to train or the company don't pay for you to train. What do you do in your off time, in your downtime? What are you spending your money on? I can tell guys that's really got passion for what they do on one thing. How do you spend your time and your money? If you show me how you spend your time and your money, I know exactly what level of operator you are. 100%. The guys that genuinely, they're passionate about what they do, they love what they do. These are the guys that on their off days, they're at the range, they're at the gym. They're engaging with other operatives. They're sitting and chatting, close protection. They're sitting and chatting, bodyguarding, security, whatever the case may be. They're surrounding themselves with like-minded people, just like with any other industry. You tend to gravitate towards people in your industry and guys that's on a higher level than what you want, guys that you want to glean from. You know what I'm saying? A lot of guys just don't do that. They'd rather go and buy an expensive bottle of whiskey of 4, 5, even 600, 700 rand instead of being like, you know what? 2 boxes of ammo. I'm going to hit the range. And even if I'm there by myself, but I'm going to work on X, Y, or Z drill. And this is what I'm going to do. Again, If you don't have guys to go train with because you guys work on rotations or whatever, take your girlfriend to the range, take your wife to the range, take your best mate to the range that has nothing to do with security, and have them be your client. And you just stepping in, getting the client behind you, all of these drills that we have to do in any case.
Yeah.
So again, it comes down to, how are you growing yourself? What are you spending your money on? How are you spending your time? Are you growing outside of just operating? A lot of guys come in again and they want to make all of this money. But again, with making all of this money, how much are you investing into yourself? Like the guys that comes and they do multiple courses. You meet these guys and you think to yourself, gee, why does guys do this? But they just want to learn, because I come to you and I'm learning stuff from you that I didn't learn from that guy. You go to that guy and you're learning something that you didn't learn by Ryan. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
Again, you have to keep learning. That's how you keep growing. And a lot of guys wants to get to a very high level very quickly, but they're not willing to do those things, those small basic disciplines, or consistently over a long period of time. How do we change that, Ryan? Can we change that?
I think it's isolated to the individual's mentality. I mean, the saying, the cliche, you take a horse to the water, you can't make it drink. If you want to evolve, you'll evolve, Ali. I'll evolve. If I don't want to, I don't have to.
Yeah.
But then stay where you are.
Yeah.
Stay stagnant.
Yeah.
Stay in that dead-end job.
Yeah.
You've got to evolve with the times, because Joburg is fast-paced.
Very.
Okay. There's no like, oh, let's have a siesta like they have in Europe at 1 o'clock. We're here to operate. And evolving again, you evolve at your own pace.
Yeah.
It's very hard, because I think as humans, we don't like to get out of our comfort zone.
Sure.
And the guys who have got out of their comfort zone are the ones who are at top of their game.
Yeah.
You look at all these guys on Instagram, these American ex-mill guys, and all of them, they're out of their comfort zone.
Sure.
They're running at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter where, how far, they're up.
Yeah.
They're doing the hard work.
Sure.
Because they might not be a creative mind where they can create an application that they can sell over Google for 5 billion or for $10 million or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, we can teach you so much.
Sure.
The rest is up to you.
Yes.
The MD is not going to save you. The MD of that security company is not going to save you when you're on the ground.
Yeah.
And if you haven't draw stroked, if you haven't done garment clearances, if you haven't done scanning or contact drills in the correct way, proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
Sitting in the car on your phone, aircon on, keys in the ignition. Bad drills, bro. Bad drills. We call it skills and drills.
Yeah.
What? Because you've been doing the same job for 3 years, now nothing's going to change. Your baseline is yellow, your situational awareness, and you have to train your brain to do that.
Sure.
Whether you read, whether you have it up on a board, as you come out the shower, go train.
Yeah.
I don't know. Get to the range this weekend. Put notices on your phone.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate because I'm always training with my learners.
100%.
So for me, it's okay.
It's a lifestyle.
Yeah, but the guys like you, 6 days a week, maybe got a day off. The last thing I think you feel like is it's in the range.
Yeah. But
you got your wife breathing down your neck. But that's what...
Again, what are you have to lay it down, eh? You have to lay
and
down
that's
your
what
life
makes you different to the run-of-the-mill operatives.
Sure.
This industry has 700,000 active personnel.
Jeebus.
Whether they be CPOs, whether they be security guards, managers, consultants, owners. That's your competition, bro.
Sure.
You got 699,000 competition.
True. And I think just on that, for the person that's looking at this, that's going, we at a crossroad now. We've reached this point, and we need to procure for security for our exco, level. What do they need to look for? Again, competence compliance, but in terms of compliance, what do they need to look for? A lot of them don't even understand SIRA. A lot of them don't even know CECITA, you know. So when I sit with people and I'm like, listen, I know that guy's great and he's your cousin's friend, but he's not a protector,
Correct.
He's not compliant,
Correct.
So you've got two options. Either send him to Ryan to go get compliant, which I just end up sending everyone to Ryan, to go get compliant, or two, hire the correct person. But when you're hiring the correct person, the person must have their SIRA in place. They must have done a a CPO course, a close protection course that's CETA recognized.
Correct.
You know, depending on where he'll be in the team, he must have certain driving accreditation skills that goes with that. You know,
Correct.
what would you say to these people?
They're hiring you for security service, so foremost, they're going to have the firearms competencies
Sure.
up to business purposes.
Sure.
Remember, the security companies issue that. As long as the security companies have followed the correct processes and permit registers, etc., etc., then they have to be a minimum of a grade C plus.
Sure.
Okay, as an operative, and they have to have an in-date Sierra certificate. They go to your normal Sierra grading schools. You do a 3-week course from E to C. If you want to do B and A grades, these are just levels.
Yeah.
So those people who are none the wiser are just different levels.
Yeah.
You can Google it. You can have a look. No problem. So Sierra is the private security industry regulatory authority,
Yeah.
and we're governed by them. They're basically the law enforcement for our security operatives to toe the line.
Yeah.
What happens on that process, they take all your details. When the learners are getting registered, Sierra does what they call a CRC check on you to see that you don't have a background as a criminal. You haven't committed scheduled offenses.
Sure.
And that gives us a clean. Because in South Africa, you have to be a legal citizen or permanent resident to carry out a security function.
Okay.
That's from technical to physical security.
Sure.
From consulting to whatever it is that you decide you're going to do, whatever your profession is within the security realm.
Sure.
So Sierra is going to be first one. And then dissect that individual that's going to be working for that organization.
Yeah.
So if you're the CEO, you're going to assign someone within your organization to go through that red tape process. Is Ryan's guys accredited? Yes. Do they have proper firearms on their books? Yes. Do they have this? And that's the problem with the clients. They assume you have that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're going to have guys rocking up with illegal firearms, sometimes no firearms,
Yeah. Or air pistols.
or air pistols.
Yeah. Blanks.
Yeah.
These blanks. I mean,
Okay. Pew pew, you know, that type of scenario. So the reality is the client's got to get educated, and you look in certain code of conducts under the Sierra Code of Conducts. There are processes where they say the client must go through that due diligence.
Sure.
But who's enforcing it, Ali?
No.
It's all good having these laws and bylaws.
Sure.
We need someone to enforce it.
Yeah.
We need someone. So it's the unregistered guard force, bodyguard force, that are getting clamped because they're on the ground. While the other guy's sitting in his glass tower somewhere, you can't locate him.
Sure.
Moving from company. Close the company down, deregistered. They just get their wife to open up a new company or their cousin, and they just start the process again.
Yeah.
Are we ever going to stop that type of, activity? It's not for me to judge.
Yeah.
I'm not the authority. We'll leave it up to the authority to handle that process.
Sure.
But you got to find accredited guys. It's not hard. Get yourself on Google, phone a legitimate company that has a reputable reputation, and then let them run you through the process.
Sure.
Say, this is what you need, 1, 2, 3, in order to procure a proper security service. And don't just hire guards with firearms. Make sure, like you said, they have the accredited papers under CETA or an in-house training company that offers that service.
Yeah.
Many of us around, okay, and then they can do their due diligence.
Ryan, if someone wanted to reach out to you, how can they reach you?
They can contact me. My company is called Ipeleng Risk Management Services, Pty Limited. We're on Google. We have a Facebook page. My number is 072-736-7340 or Ryan at Ipeleng. I'm a hands-on owner.
Very, very.
I'll
vouch for that.
Yeah. So I don't have other people running those processes. I've had people do that. They've let me down.
Yeah.
And it's a cost saving. I would like to think that's a good business practice. I like to speak to my clients, build up a personal rapport. You're evidence of that.
100%.
I've always got time. If I don't, I'll phone you back.
100%.
But 100%. Guiding and mentoring is what we do. We've got a little bit of grey hair and wisdom now.
Sure.
So hopefully, the younger, upcoming, hungry, stronger foster operatives can take on some of that wisdom.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think that's needed. I think that's much needed in our industry.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I'd like the younger guys to make use of. Personally for me, it's definitely helped a lot. So I genuinely think that the younger guys should make use of that. Ryan,
Awesome.
thank you so much, man. It was awesome having you, and we really do appreciate you taking time away from your business. We
No
know
problem.
that's not an easy thing to do, but we really do appreciate your time, and we value you so much. We value you for coming out and just to educating us, because the reality is I'm still your student, and I'm still
Thanks,
learning
Ellie.
from you. Okay?
Yeah, the reality is, if I could spend 6 hours here talking, I would. I'll tell my lady to get the sleeping bags, and we would and talk about some other stuff.
No,
But
100%.
But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you. It's
Thanks.
good to connect with you.
Thanks.
And yeah, I hope that your followers listen carefully, and that they appreciate the feedback you give to the industry.
Sure.
And yeah, we carry on, hey?
Definitely, bud.
All right.
We'll definitely have you back again.
Awesome.
Thanks, Ryan.
All right. Thanks,
Cheers,
Ellie.
man.
Cheers, bro.
Bye.